It's earlier in the process.
I think anything short of actual closing or the sale or the transfer of the property gets us in a better position.
But he has an incentive, once he pays those fees, to get moving, to get it on the market, which I like. So I'm kind of in a conundrum here. I don't like the short time frame to sheetrock, but I like very much the idea that it'll get him to move.
Let me ask, do you have any sense of how many houses in your neighborhood were sold and conventionally financed, bank financed, without a certificate of occupancy?
I think it's about half a dozen.
So the point is, we really can't depend on the banks to require a certificate of occupancy, even though both Fannie Mae and Ginnie Mae regulations require it.
Well, I would put that on the closing outfit, as opposed to the banks, whoever did the closing.
If it's not in the escrow instructions, the escrow closer cannot require it.
But we've got a lien though, right?
Is that right?
So
That's right. If it is not in the instructions, their job is to follow the instructions.
It's got a point.
And if the instructions conflict, they come up against the conflict and they notify both parties and say, we can't close because there is conflict that you have to resolve.
Well, the banks haven't done a very good job then in our neighborhood of doing this.
It's the banks that have failed.
I think there's certainly a point where everything was flying so high and flying so fast that there were, even with the best doc prep systems and everything else going directly to the title companies and the closers, there's still obviously cracks to be found in the system.
I got a question for you though about that. When a house is sold and there's a lien on the house, isn't that a required disclosure to the buyers?
When there's a lien. Currently, we don't do liens.
But that's what this is
This
doing.
would put it in place.
Right, so this would be disclosed as a lien during that whole process.
So in theory, you wouldn't get it at this one, but if it gets sold again, then there would be an impact fee sitting there?
Or if it went as far as closing, they would catch it at closing if for some reason it moved and sold without a certificate.
Again, if in your private purchase, no financing, there's no requirement to settle that lien.
Right, that's true. But if we tie it to certificate of occupancy, you cannot occupy
Yeah.
the house.
We could force a settlement of that lien if the property changes hands and title transfers, because that's exactly what the lien's for.
Actually, we've had cases where that didn't happen, even though we had a lien on the house.
Yes.
That's when I'd be going after a title company.
Well, but the purchaser can say, okay, I'll accept the lien. I think you've got to have a big problem trying to enforce that.
This agreement says that the lien cannot be transferred to anyone else.
Okay. How about an estate? Suppose they die.
I'd have to ask the city attorney, but it says it cannot go to heirs and assigns and all that.
Okay.
So it has to be satisfied prior to it being sold to anybody else.
So all of
Transfer
this
the
more or
property.
less argues to go with the sheetrock as opposed to the closing.
Well, what about certificate of occupancy?
Well, yeah, I'm just worried that we have so much experience with certificate of occupancy not working that's the reason in my mind to push it to sheetrock, because that's the point at which you close up the house. You have to have done all your
Electrical, plumbing, insulation.
yeah. And I keep talking about the mortgage companies as being banks. Not all of them were banks. Many of them were mortgage companies, Premier Mortgage, Portland Mortgage. Those are not banks. They closed those mortgages and then sold the mortgages to Fannie Mae in $5 million chunks, or Ginnie Mae, either one. And in so doing, promised that they had met all of the regulations, but clearly didn't. And so I just don't want us to be holding the bag or stuck interpleading between new homeowner, the realtor who certainly has liability, the mortgage lender, and HUD, which is Fannie Mae.
Can I ask a related question? One of the things that I highlighted here was on the lien process. Are you gonna lien are you gonna go through the paperwork to lien every property, every house? Or is it only if they just decide all of a sudden they're not gonna pay?
No, a lien will be placed on any property where the builder or property owner chooses to enter into this agreement. They can pay their
Okay.
impact fees up front.
Only once they ask for the deferral?
So if they ask for the deferral and they sign it, then before we issue the building permit, we would take that down, or the attorney takes it down and records it at the county.
And the other question that I'd highlighted, because I was curious who was gonna pay for that, and over here on the next page, it says that the administrative fee of $300 is paid by that homeowner or developer, so.
In your understanding, if we do tie it to sheetrock, would $300 be enough of a I mean, would the benefit of deferring the impact overcome the $300 fee for the liens?
Well, it's my understanding that the residential builders don't feel that, they don't feel that because of that $300 that they'll actually participate in it. The center charges $300, and I can tell you how I came up with that $300, but although they've had a lot of interest, only one residential developer has taken advantage of this. The $300 comes up from, to record the agreement by the number of pages and just the base fee, it's gonna be around $77. To record the lien, it's gonna be another $77. And then, of course, there's the administrative costs, and then at the end, there's paperwork for the attorney to do to release the lien. So it costs the city just in recording fees around $200 to $250. So the $50 is the administrative fee for staff. So it's to cover our costs, it's not to make money, but I agree, for the amount of deferral, I know that it will be nominal for commercial developers. They're very excited about this.
And I think to me, that's the bigger key for this. And I think we heard that from Mike Bomar as well. You know, if it's something that becomes advantageous for another builder because of the size of the home, the property, all that type of stuff, wonderful. It's great that they still get the benefit of that as well. The bigger benefit goes back to the commercial construction. And quite frankly, I think right now in this community, we have enough standing home inventory that while I certainly don't want to disincent any builder, because there are an awful lot of building trades that make money and make wages and pay for those that are in the home building businesses all the way down the line. For us, what we're trying to do in the biggest way is to promote that commercial and that retail construction. And if this is helpful on that, then all of it becomes a real big incentive.
And it could be a benefit if you had a large builder that was building more than one house at a time. Because the money they were saving, they'd be able to invest it back in the other building. But the one who just builds one house at a time, it's unlikely they would participate in this. Considering also that our impact fees are very low.
This thing really works for the commercial side. It kind of took